Well, several years after the gold rush washed out in the Boise Basin, cities started springing up across the lower elevations. By 1900, 10 years after Idaho became a state, the population in the Treasure Valley was just above 19,000. Most still lived outside city limits on more than 1,600 farms covering more than 113,000 acres of land. That's according to the Idaho State Historical Society. And all of that was thanks to 568 miles of canals and irrigation ditches bringing water to those farms. One of those places that planted itself on the map is now mostly known as one of the valley's main roads on that map. Ustick was once on a timeline to become its own independent community until water, time and growth like time, can roll by undeterred, only altered sometimes by the path in front of it. A change in direction can change a lot. Water is what made the Treasure Valley productive and livable, and led to communities popping up all over.
If you're in a barren landscape, the next obvious thing is you need to find access to water.
In the 1870s, a canal system began to take shape, a series of ditches to take river water where it wasn't. Think the New York, Reidenbach, and settlers.
And by 1891, there were nearly 50 miles of canals that brought Boise River water as far west as Nampa.
Which meant homesteads and farms sprouting in spots south and west of the river.
We have Boise, who, central location, and we have a town of Meridian that had started to grow in 1893. And this Ustick property sat kind of in between the two.
160 acres claimed by Jacob Clemens in 1894, who filled them with orchards.
Anytime you have a product, you have to have a way to bring that product to market.
Back then, that meant investing in railroads.
And so the Boise Interurban Railway had a loop that took people and goods from Boise along State Street to Collister and to a number of points, and then back down along what we consider Ustick Road, back down into downtown Boise.
One of those investors of the Interurban Railway was a gentleman named Dr. Harlan P. Ustick. That's him in the top hat at the Golden Spike ceremony.
So this is where this name, Ustick, comes into the picture.
An ear, nose, and throat doctor from Ohio, Ustick also had an eye for business. And he had visions of building a town. So Ustick acquired some of Clemens' acres and laid out his plans and the plats by 1907.
So what we're looking at is the original plat of the Ustick town site.
And people were buying into Ustick's idea.
We clearly see the Boise Valley Railway line following this route.
You got a train track that runs through, you got water, now you got people interested in buying there. Mm-hmm. What came next?
And so he ended up opening a bank, and he served as president of a bank in town.
However, Ustick wasn't much of a banker, and it closed after just 3 years.
But they were also able to secure a mercantile store.
And even the orchards found success in the form of a cider house.
There was a Baptist church that opened and built a building. There was a Ustick school, and it really did operate as a true individual community.
A community that was cut short, much like Dr. Ustick himself.
And in 1917, he was visiting some of his mining interests in Yellow Pine, and he died of a heart attack.
After that, nothing could stop the life being squeezed from his town.
By 1918, we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, and we're in the middle of World War I, and things are changing. And interurban railways are no longer as critical because automobiles have become the primary mode of transportation. Boise is growing, Meridian is growing.
And becoming actual cities, while Ustick tried to stick with its roots.
And Ustick never elevated to that level, in part because they always were rural. They always maintained that rural profile, and they never let that go. Eventually, those orchards became subdivisions, and eventually the city of Boise annexed those subdivisions into city limits.
That was in 1995. Nearly 30 years after, you can still see some of what Ustick envisioned more than 115 years ago.
The original bank building and the original mercantile building are still standing.
And so are the consequences of change.
Change happens all the time, but change also leaves breadcrumbs. And if we can take the time to watch for that change and to see what has been left behind, there's always a story that we can learn from that.